Anya Bakri, CEO and President Director of PT Bakri and Brothers. The panel will be moderated by Stephen Marcelino, ASEAN Client Engagement Lead of Accenture Strategy. I'm Alan Lai with the UK-ASEAN Business Council and have a couple of notes to highlight before we begin. Firstly, we would love to hear your thoughts and questions and invite you to post your comments in the question box at the bottom of your screen, and our moderator will pass them on to the panel during the Q&A section. And secondly, if you are on social media, do tag us at UK-ASEAN. And now to deliver her welcome remarks and introduce our first speakers, I'd like to hand over to the chair of the UK-ASEAN Business Council. Baroness Neverov has had 3 careers in politics, in business, and in the civil service. A former UK business minister and board director for Tesco, Baroness Neverov is now an active peer in the House of Lords and has tremendous experience and passion for Southeast Asia. Baroness Neverov, over to you in London.
Alan, thank you so much. And we're particularly delighted to be hosting this event on e-mobility in Indonesia, and to do so with Connected Places Catapult. As you will know, the UK-ASEAN Business Council, which I have the pleasure to chair, champions British business in Southeast Asia. And we work with ASEAN member states in highlighting trade and investment opportunities to UK companies. And we take a wide berth. We care about education, and it's great to have esteemed members of the academic community here today. The Connected Places Catapult is the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport, and places. And through the Innovating for Clean Air programme, Connected Places Catapult and our British Embassy team in Indonesia are supporting Indonesia in its aspirations to address the challenges of air pollution through the adoption of e-mobility solutions and policy interventions. And we're going to hear today about Indonesia's exciting progress in e-mobility, research that the Catapult has conducted in 3 cities in Indonesia. And we're going to have a discussion on the opportunities for UK firms and others in the e-mobility ecosystem, especially in Indonesia. We've been working with Indonesia very well on the DIT's trade review, and of course in the run-up to COP26, with the sort of anti-pollution measures being also important in the fight on climate change. And indeed tomorrow we have another seminar with Indonesia, this time on climate change for some of our members. But I'd like to start the proceedings by asking Richard Graham MP to start an excellent lineup of speakers. Richard is the long-standing, I think he was the first, trade envoy to Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. He's MP for Gloucester. He's a very good friend to Indonesia and to UK-ABC, and knows the country very well. Richard, we're longing to hear from you.
Thank you very much indeed. And indeed, selamat siang to all our guests in Jakarta, especially Pak Professor Satrio Sumantri Brojonegoro, but also to my friend Pak Anang Bakri, and to anybody else who's joining us. On the UK side today, as Lucy has mentioned and Alan introduced, we got an almost as glittering a cast. So this is one of these great dating sessions between the top Indonesians and the top UK side as well. I think the context of today's virtual meeting is exciting. Last week, we had an Indonesian cabinet minister here with a delegation of 30. In a couple of weeks' time, we are eagerly anticipating the conclusion of the joint trade review and the setting up of a new organization to take forward the business relationships between our 2 countries. And almost every day, as the Baroness has mentioned, almost every day is Indonesia Day. I think I've been on a Zoom call with Indonesia or with the Indonesian ambassador here every day for the last 2 weeks. And that's not an exaggeration. So this is a good symbol of how our 2 countries can work more closely together. and no better cause than the one we're discussing today, because I think that we will hear shortly from Professor Baksatrio about some of the challenges that Indonesia faces, particularly the huge amount of carbon fuels that are imported daily to power Indonesia's energy requirements, and at the same time, President Jokowi's desire to make Indonesia a leader in the new world of greater e-mobility. And that, I think, is where the catapult, wonderful word, catapult, effectively a launch of either a rocket or an idea, in this case, really practical ideas, which Dr. Amy Hockebell will, I think, introduce later, some of the research that we've done that can be very useful for Indonesia. So the combination of Indonesia's desire and some UK practical ideas and experience could be a very good combination. And ini betul salah satu bidang menarik sekali yang hilang untuk kerjasama di antara kedua negara kita. Jadi saya harapkan diskusi ini kita bisa meneruskan, and that we can take this forward in the future into some very practical ways of cooperation between businesses. And one example of that will be a visit I'm doing in a week's time to the London electrical vehicles to see whether we can pursue their interest in having assembly in Indonesia. So, without more ado, thank you to UK-ABC for hosting this. Thank you, Baroness, for putting us all together, the two professors and everybody else for joining us. And now I'm going to hand back to the chair to introduce our guest speakers to hear more about what's happening in Indonesia and how we can help through the catapult. Thank you.
I think you're on mute, Baroness.
Thank you so much, Richard. And it's now my particular pleasure, and I'm afraid I don't speak Indonesian, so you must forgive me, but to invite Bapak Satrio Somantri-Brodjo Negoro, who is our president of the Indonesian Academy of Sciences, and who's going to deliver a keynote address on Indonesia's e-mobility future. Bapak Satrio has a long and distinguished academic and public service career, and he obtained his PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of California at Berkeley, USA, and serves as a visiting professor in mechanical engineering at Toyo Hasha University of Technology in Japan. And in 2018, he was appointed a special advisor to Indonesia's coordinating Minister of Maritime and Investment Affairs. And he's leading on the vital work on the ecosystem of electric vehicles in Indonesia, which is going to obviously to be a highlight of today's discussion. Bapak Satrio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Baroness, for the very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, may I start by, can I share my screen? Okay.
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is keen on developing e-mobility. There are three main reasons for this. The first one is the environment issue. Currently, the greenhouse gas emission from fossil fuel in transportation is amounting about 127,000 gigagrams carbon dioxide. It's about 34.7% in Indonesia. Number 2 polluter in Indonesia after the industry. The second issue or factor is the economy. Every day we have to import fossil fuel amounting up in 800,000 barrels per day. So you can imagine we have the current account deficit due to importing this fossil fuel. The third one is the industrial resilience. Indonesia has the potential to become and play a major role in global supply chain in battery electric vehicle. This will be the first time Indonesia will be in the same platform with our neighbors, even our partners in the world, in industry, by having to develop the BEV, battery electric vehicle. In the past, Indonesia is not known for an industrial country, but with this moment, I hope that Indonesia will somehow show up and have the same platform with our partners. Next. This is the survey by the Boston Consulting Group in 2020, showing the trend of development of electric vehicle. Yeah, from 2018 to 2030, you can see the growth of the electric vehicle is quite significant. On the other hand, the population of the ICE or gasoline and diesel cars are reducing. Yeah, so by 2030, for example, about 18% population of the cars will be BEV, battery electric vehicle, and then 6% of PHEV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and 7% of the HEV, yeah, full hybrid electric, and 20% of this mild hybrid electric, and diesel and gasoline are on the lower side. So the trend is there. So you can see the ratio of the growth is about 15%, yeah, of electric vehicle share in the market from 2018 all the way up to 2030, is amounting about 50% electrification, and the volume is amounting up to 100 million cars totally, but 18% BEV, meaning only 18 million cars in 2030. Next. Another survey done by Deloitte to 2020, outlook for annual global passenger car and light-duty vehicle sales until 2030. This we only have about 3 types of the vehicles: the global ICE, internal combustion engine, global BEV, battery electric vehicle, and global PHEV, global plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. So you can see from the table that the growth from 2010 until 2013, the electric vehicle share will reach about 30%, yeah, in total car vehicle population, while the amount will be 130 million cars or electric vehicles will be in the market. So the demand is there, yeah, and we see that the decrease in the global ICE, combustion engine, meaning we try to reduce the pollution and reduce the greenhouse gas emission as well. Now we look at the demand of the EV in Indonesia. Next, please. So the Indonesian market demand, this is just still the prediction. Currently, we start in 2021 because we just launched our e-mobility plan in Indonesia after we have this presidential regulation number 55, year 2019. So you can see the demand of EV market in Indonesia currently about 5,000. This only for 4 wheels, yeah? not 2 wheels. four-wheel vehicles. 5,000 now, 2025, 30,000, 2030, predicted will be 120,000. Compare the total market demand of the vehicles, four-wheel vehicles. Majority still dominated by the combustion engine. Yeah, right now 750,000. 2025, the demand will be 1 million cars total, and then 2030, 1,280,000 cars. So you can see that the trend is decreasing. Yeah, we increase the electric vehicle. On the other hand, the population of the combustion engine will be decreased gradually. So we try to promote for the clean air, or to minimize the pollution. Next, when we talk about electric vehicle, one of the infrastructure needed to support the electric vehicle is the charging station. Yeah, we need to charge the vehicle so it can move for quite a distance. So the government is also making a plan, designing to place the charging station in some location. And if you see the total volume of the charging station, already planned as this 2021. Every year we will produce or install 390 units. 2023, we will install every year 1,030 units. 2025, about 2,000 units. Well, that's every year. So if total or cumulative units, you can see in the table that currently we have 572 units at the end of the 2021. And then end of 2023, supposed to have 2,296 units. And in 2025, we expect to have the install 5,853 units. This for the charging station. Yeah, the growth is there to anticipate the growth of the demand of the electric vehicle. Next, we see the location for the charging station. I know that the Catapult is doing planning to support the e-mobility in 3 provinces. Yeah, West Java, East Java, and Bali. And this figure, I just want to show you the potential of the location for charging station. In Jakarta, for example, 39% population of total charging station of Indonesia. Majority in Jakarta, 39%. In West Java, the potential location of charging station is about 26% of total population. This is in the 3 cities, Bandung, Bogor, and Bekasi. And East Java, Surabaya, 9%. And Bali dan Pasar is 2%. The potential location means the location where the charging station will be located and will be effective for the user of the electric vehicle. Yeah, maybe in the current gas station that will replace to become the electric vehicle charging station, and also in some of the malls, shopping centers, and some public facilities also, and offices. Yeah, so that means the potential location for an effective charging station for the electric vehicle. Next, okay, what about the National E-Mobility Plan for urban transportation? Because we understand that the main polluter is actually the public transportation. so that we can minimize the growth of the combustion engine in public transportation. If we can shift or change into the electric vehicle significantly, then we can have the significant reduction in the pollution. So that's why I share with you the data for the net e-mobility plan in several cities for urban transportation. I select several cities here. Jakarta, of course, as the capital of Indonesia, as a benchmark, perhaps. And then I also select Bandung, Bekasi, and Bogor, and West Java to support your study for e-mobility in the 3 provinces, as mentioned in the title of the webinar. Then we have East Java and also Bali. The target of electrification you can see on the right hand side, the right for the right column, electrification target. In Jakarta, for example, there will be 10,000 electric bus, electric public transportation. In Bandung, 2,471 public electric vehicles. Bekasi, 2,381 public electric vehicles. Bogor, 982. Surabaya, 2,806 electric vehicle public, and then Pasar, 897. So the figure is composed from some information, population of the city, and classification of the city. It's a big city, metropolitan city, or core city, or even province capital. Each city will have their own type of condition. And the corridor that will be served by the electric vehicle bus or public transportation. In Jakarta, for example, there are 15 corridors. Some 15 corridors. Like in Pasar Bali, Bogor, and Bekasi, only 8 corridors. And Bandung and Surabaya, about 12 corridors of the bus or electric vehicle bus. And the length of corridor is about 30 kilometers for Jakarta, Bandung, Bekasi, and Surabaya, and 25 kilometers for Bogor and Pasar. So with this data, then they come up with this number of electrification target. So hopefully this data can support your study, how we improve our e-mobility in order to achieve the target of reducing the emission, reducing the import, and increasing our capacity in the industry. Next, please. Okay, now we move a little bit further for the resilience of Indonesian industry. Why we need to develop our industry? Because we have the potential. We have mineral resources. Like on the left-hand side, you can see nickel, cobalt, stainless steel, aluminum, copper, manganese, tin, and rare earth element. These material are the basic material for electric vehicle and its ecosystem. Nickel, for example, we are the number 1 in the world. Copper, aluminum, we are number 6 in the world. And for the rest of the material, we have plenty resources that need to be considered for our development. So I call this green energy ecosystem in Indonesia. Yeah, the vision is an integrated ecosystem linking Indonesia's rich material resources to high-value electric vehicle products through R&D and investment in advanced material and manufacturing technologies, boosting Indonesia's future global outlook assisted by its comprehensive green energy strategy. So you can see that from this material, we can have this optimized added value. Yeah, and we can develop electric vehicle battery. We can develop electric vehicle motor and inverter. We can develop electric vehicle lightweight structure and assembly. And including for charging station, we can develop renewable energy for electricity station, because Indonesia is rich for renewable energy. For example, wind energy, solar energy, and also the solar panel. So with this system, all the material are here, Indonesia, and we have the technology. We have the demand now for EV development, and therefore we have this like a closed loop ecosystem of green energy. Yeah, so material manufacturing technology, building green energy technology system. So this is something we have to develop for Indonesia. So we will become one of the global supply chains in EV ecosystem in green energy. Next, please.
Bapak Satrio, we are tight for time, so perhaps you could come
this
to.
last one.
Thank you.
This is the last one. Okay. Again, this is the elaboration of the previous slide. So on the left-hand side, you can see our material potential need to be utilized for our prosperity, and we can develop EV lightweight structure, the cars, the structure, the body. We have the EV motor and inverter. Yeah. Also using the material on the left-hand side, we have the EV battery. All the material are here. And we have the EV electric charging station. Again, using the material that we have in Indonesia. We have the wind turbine to supply the renewable energy, green energy. The material also here, copper and steels. We have also the PV, photovoltaic, solar panel. The material for solar panel also available here. And also the CSP, concentrated solar panel. Again, we have the material, aluminum glass, etc. in Indonesia. So, concluding remarks is that global leadership, active role in Indonesia across international supply chains. On the other hand, with local energy ownership, supporting villages and islands to build self-sustainable energy ecosystem. So this is something we want to achieve with the plan for e-mobility. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much for that. Absolutely fantastic vision. And I'm now going to rapidly pass over, if I may, to Steve Marcelino, who leads the ASEAN business at Accenture Strategy, who is going to introduce and moderate our panel. He does a great deal of work on e-mobility and has been a huge supporter of UK-ABC. And please pass the baton back, if you would. Please pass the baton back at 9:40. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the phone call. I'll now go on mute for the panel.
Thanks, Baroness. I'm very delighted to really start the panel discussion with introducing the report, and very pleased to have with us a couple very key people in the report. Professor Paul Monks, Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy at the UK government. Paul Monks to start with a quick high-level overview, and then I'm keen also to invite Dr. Amy Hutchedal, Director of Connected Places Catapult, as well, to add certain findings that I'm sure our audience would be really keen to hear. Professor Paul Monks, over to you.
Thank you very much. My camera seems to be turned off, and I don't seem to be able to turn it back on. I've been turned off by the host. So if somebody wants to turn my camera back on for me, I would be welcome. I would welcome that. All right, now, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, our Indonesian colleagues. I'm Professor Paul Monks. I'm the Chief Scientific Advisor in the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. So you can see that very much what we're talking about today is at the heart of it. I'm going to give a very, very short introduction to the e-mobility for clean air report. Clearly, air quality is a global problem. It's by 2050 predicted by the OECD to be one of the largest killers of people around the world in terms of adverse outcomes. I think we've just heard a very key talk about how we can think about win-win benefits that drive both outcomes for climate change in reducing and decarbonizing our economies, but also a clear health benefit in terms of the air quality that comes with that. And if there is a good thing to come from the global pandemic, it has shown that we can, by reducing particularly our transport emissions, reduce air quality globally. So there's hope for the future out of what has been actually quite a severe time. As the professor said, the science innovation is absolutely a key to achieving that. It's that triangle of economic growth, environmental outcomes, and industrial impact. And I think we absolutely recognize that that is going to be a key part of the transition to a low carbon economy. And this report really, in the Indonesian context, begins to look at that. And we're looking we're looking forward very much to welcoming Indonesian colleagues and colleagues from around the world to COP26 this autumn in Glasgow, which will absolutely have these at the fore. Just as one further framing thing, I would say, before we get into this discussion, the UK has just produced its integrated review, which put together security, defence, development, and foreign policy, and a vision for the 2030s. And again, what that report said was, science and technology are at the heart of our alliance and partnerships worldwide, and we can absolutely see that in this report in e-mobility. And the Prime Minister, in the foreword to that report, made absolutely clear that tackling climate change and biodiversity is absolutely to the front of that. And Indonesia sits in a crucial part of the world. It's part of the world's growth engine. It's home to more than half of the world's population in that region, 40% of GDP, and some of the fastest growing economies. So decarbonizing and e-mobility sits at the fore of that clean growth and that economic opportunity. And I think the esteemed professor has just made clear the case where there's a win-win benefit for the outcomes with respect to air quality, but also with respect to economic growth and development as well. So in our integrated review, we've said that actually we see as a country in the UK a real tilt towards the Indo-Pacific regions, recognizing the benefits that will come from that. And we're looking forward to particularly digital and technological innovation and working alongside our key partners in Indonesia to achieve their vision and support their vision for a cleaner society, which uses the capabilities of e-mobility as part of that transition to a decarbonised economy. So in summary, thank you very much for this report. Amy Hockadar will give a little bit more information about the e-mobility for clean air report. I think I want to re-emphasise this win-win situation with respect to climate and air quality, and also that green economic impact. And the UK's interest absolutely in working alongside our international partners around that science and innovation piece to achieve your vision for your societies and your people, where we can help as a country also that shares those same values. So thank you, Professor Sotero Sumatari Badenegoro, for your vision, and we absolutely want to encourage you to champion your low carbon innovation and work alongside you as partners on that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Paul, for providing a really good context before Amy introduced the report. So Dr. Amy Hudgedell, Director of Global Business Growth, Connected Places Catapult. Over to you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Baroness Trade Envoy Graham, Babak Satrio, and Professor Monks. Not at all an intimidating panel of distinguished speakers to follow, but I will do my best. I have been given the honor of presenting a few of the high-level findings of the report to facilitate our panel discussion. I have to say that I'm not the author of the report, and there are many people at the Catapult and across our partners in Indonesia that have worked over the past 2 months to put this report together. I will do my best to represent their work as they've done it. And I'd like to start with just letting people know a little bit about Connected Places Catapult for those that are not familiar. As the Baroness said, we are the UK government's Center of Excellence for Urban Innovation, focusing particularly on mobility and the built environment. We look at 3 areas that I think are quite key. And you'll see them there at the bottom of the circle. When we talk about our mission, I always like to start out with the fact that we are looking at new levels of physical, digital, and social connectedness. And hopefully when you see a report and you hear what we've done, you'll understand that we're not talking about a piece of technology. We're not talking about a singular innovation. We're talking about connecting our cities, connecting our businesses so that we can improve social circumstances, we can improve efficiencies, we can improve public services, we can improve quality of life across 3 areas: physical, digital, and social connectedness. So let me tell you a bit about the report that we've been working on. Next slide. First of all, a big thank you to the embassy that has been supporting us across the region. And you'll see shortly that the team at the Catapult has been able to reach far and wide across the region with lots of interviews, research, surveys. And this is really because of our partnership and working closely with those on the ground. Also to highlight the fact that we take our cue from the stakeholders on the ground, from those in the region, and we're not here as a Catapult to inform people what they should be doing, but to highlight areas of partnership between us based on the challenges and the opportunities that are raised by the local stakeholders. So an amazing work by the British Embassy in the region. Next slide. Really what we're looking to do with this type of partnership and is to have tangible outcomes. And so I wanted to highlight those right off the bat because the Catapult is full of experts across technology, mobility, and certainly research, but we're not here to create a report or a piece of research. We're here to offer live, tangible solutions on the ground where companies can partner together to show the art of the possible in addressing some of these challenges. And so this report is just meant to be very early step in that so that we can then partner together. And so what we've done is to map the opportunity landscape of the region and look for the various partnerships that we think will be the best partnerships to start the process. We've put together a guide for UK companies that would like to work with Indonesian companies, and we always encourage partnerships between 2 businesses, both a UK business and a local business, so that we form a lasting and sustainable partnership. And so that UK businesses that have a solution for a partner also understand the real context on the ground. So it's important to have local partners in these types of projects. And then there's a series of practical recommendations at the end of the report, really kind of the I almost hate to say it, but the low-hanging fruit, which is what we all want. We want something tangible that we can do, that we can start with, that we can show the outputs and outcomes that we're all capable of producing. Next slide. Just a bit about the methodology. And when I say that there's a team at the Catapult that's been working on this for the past 2 months, you'll see that they've conducted primary research with interviews over the past 60 days or so across the whole spectrum of stakeholders. And it's critical that we reach out across the spectrum. We need to talk to and involve all of the key players in this in order to form sustainable partnerships. So government, academia, businesses, industry associations must work together if we're going to look for viable, innovative solutions for this area, as well as secondary research that we undertook, and then interviewees and surveys. So hopefully this gives you a sense that there was a breadth of outreach across the spectrum with our partners in Indonesia. Next slide. The report is in 5 parts. And the first part will really talk about the context that we're working in Indonesia. We really found that, you know, as Bapak Satrio said, there is a high level of air pollution in the region. This is the context in which we are working. Now, the causes of that air pollution are varied, but the Indonesian government is committed to a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030. And in doing so, this is very similar to the UK's commitments to net zero. And as Professor Paul Monk said, all of those nations that will be participating in COP26 later this year have made similar commitments. The only way that we'll all be able to reach those commitments is if we work together. And so when we look at the causes of pollution across Indonesia, then we can start to identify very tangible ways that we can work together in that context to address them. And so we looked at how e-mobility can be part of the solution. And as Bapak Satrio said, this has to be one element of a comprehensive green energy strategy. E-mobility is not the silver bullet. It is one opportunity, it's a very viable one, and it's one that can have significant impact. So it's one that we should look at because we have the opportunity and the ability to partner now on this opportunity. And so then we looked at how the UK can support Indonesia. What type of partnerships can we form? What areas should we focus on? And you'll see in the report that we highlight 3 areas. That's communication and behavior change, platform and technology service provision, and greening the grid and green finance. These 3 areas really stood out because we think that they are areas where both the UK has a solid level of expertise from our own lessons learned, but that there's also a significant level of an ecosystem around innovation that's ripe for partnership within the Indonesia e-mobility sector. So these are the areas that we've identified to start working on first. And then we talk about the potential of this at the city level. And this is where, as Baroness said, we looked at 3 cities in particular because we want to make this tangible. So what does this look like for specific cities in Indonesia? And I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then we provide some concluding recommendations, areas that we can start to partner together on right away. Next slide, please. So first, the local context, and it provides a bit of a sobering challenge, but we have to understand exactly where we are in this moment. And where that is that two-wheelers, motorcycles, these types of vehicles are the dominant mode of transport. They're not decreasing, they're exponentially increasing at the moment. That does lend to challenges with air pollution. Even though there have been advances made in public transport, in buses and other types of transportation, we've just not been able to see the reduction in those two-wheelers that we'd really like to see that can significantly influence the e-mobility sector as well as air quality conditions. We also know that air quality and the situation right now is significant. It's having a significant impact on health. And when you look at that number around, it reduces life expectancy. That to me is the most sobering factor. We have something that we can do to address part of the air pollution factor. We should take this up and look at it together. And then the third point for the local context is that not just is there air pollution in the region, but really some of the most polluted areas. So what that means is hopefully, if you go to the next slide, for those of us that are innovators and entrepreneurs, we see that as real opportunity. And I'm not trying to be flippant about the challenges and the situation on the ground, but what that means is that we have some real tangible things that we can do together to impact those numbers. And this is not a situation that Indonesia is facing alone. This is a situation across many regions, many places, all facing the same challenge. And what the Catapult is here to do with local partners is look at the opportunities that are available to address that challenge. So highlight that innovators always see opportunity. There is wide recognition that e-mobility is part of the solution because it does contribute to the emissions. It's not the sole cause, but it does contribute. And so that's kind of a fact that we're using as a foundation for this report. So in terms of an opportunity across the region, there's kind of a 2-level opportunity, and perhaps it's linear as well, a place to start and a place to look towards a vision. And Bapak Satrio talked about some of this in the last 2 slides of his presentation. There's a real natural asset in minerals that can help Indonesia capitalize on being more of a supply chain, a parts producer that will increase local economy, that will provide influx into the e-mobility supply chain. It also provides export opportunities for Indonesia to the local region for those parts. Then there's a second level, which is really more about manufacturing. Why make parts when you can make the whole thing? There is a whole e-mobility market out there globally that Indonesia has an opportunity to play a significant part in. So you can begin by being a parts supplier and an exporter to the local region. You can advance to becoming a manufacturer of e-mobility vehicles and become a global exporter as well. And I think Indonesia is really poised to fill this slot in the global marketplace. Next slide. So how do we do it? Key word is partnership. There are 3 key areas where right now we can begin to partner on these challenges and these opportunities. First is, I mentioned this at the beginning, communication and behavior change. This is really about engaging stakeholders. We're not starting with the technology. As I said, neither is e-mobility a silver bullet, neither is a piece of technology a silver bullet. We can't just introduce an app or a piece of technology that will solve this problem. We have to start with communication of the challenge, engaging all of the stakeholders, citizens, parents, police and traffic services, urban planning, all across our region to help think about behavior change and where we want the future of mobility to be for our cities so that we can have healthier social environments. So that's first. Second is platform and technology services. So once we have buy-in from the local stakeholders, once people understand that behavior change is really the solution, then we can look at what ways technology and platforms can help meet the needs of those behavior changes. And this is where you'll see some of things like apps come into play or different platform services that can help start to solve some of the problems. And then third is greening the grid and green financing. And this is where we really get into investing, running pilot programs, partnering on tangible things that have significant impact in the mobility sector. And you'll see some of those listed there around the entry points to that e-mobility sector. Next slide, please. So to make this really tangible, we looked at 3 cities, Surabaya, Bandung, and Denpasar. And what we have seen are different situations in each city, different potential, different areas of partnership. You'll see that Surabaya is a great opportunity for e-mobility and private operators. So we see a lot of private transport, private minibuses. There's really no high capacity public transport. And so people resort to the private services. And if that's the situation, then that's where we meet the challenge. We look at e-mobility solutions for private operators and minibuses first and help to transfer those services over to e-mobility services. If you take the example of Bandung, this is where you see a nice enclave for innovation and research. And as I said, the stakeholder, engaging all of the stakeholders, including academia, including government, is critical. Academia is where these ideas are coming from. Pat Satrio will have dozens of young researchers that are working within his institution that are looking at these challenges, coming up with the research, coming up with the solutions and saying, this is what we need to test next. So this is where we start to lead into things like test beds and pilots. So it's really critical that we partner with academic institutions, but we take those ideas and we scale them into practical solutions. And then looking at an example of Denpasar, we look at a very good regulatory framework that can be an example to other cities, which means that service providers can come right in and look at some of those applications for the technology. And then finally, let me sum up with a few key points. So I think the real, we start with a bit of a sobering picture. And again, as innovators, we see real opportunity, and not just long-term opportunity, but immediate opportunity. So there's success for e-mobility to play a significant role in improving the situation with air quality and pollution, but also in terms of economic growth and mutual prosperity for both partners. We know that augmenting the EV supply chain is a really good first step and can be an importing and exporting opportunity for Indonesia. But when we partner up with all of those stakeholders across the spectrum, we can really supercharge and kind of move this into fast pace and create something very significant in a very short amount of time, and moving into things like manufacturing of electric vehicles for a larger export opportunity. And the immediate opportunity is in looking at some of the electric buses, the commercial vehicles. Set routes are always important. These are things that are going on every day, last mile delivery, those types of things that we can have immediate impact on with e-mobility services. And then finally, to kind of fully engage with the e-mobility sector across Indonesia. This has to be something that is shown to people to be viable. It has to be shown to be cost effective and efficient. And so we need to run pilots. We need to do demonstrators. These are things that the Catapult has expertise in that we can get off the ground in the coming months to start to show the art of the possible across e-mobility in Indonesia and partnerships between UK businesses and Indonesian businesses. So hopefully that gives you just a very high level approach to the report. The report is or will be shortly posted on the Connected Places Catapult website. And hopefully this short overview gave you a teaser that you'll want to go and read the full report, and will also allow you to engage in questions for us as panelists and to thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Amy. I think that's provided really good structure for the report. And on the panel discussion, let me invite Doni Donosaputro, Vice Chairman for ASEAN and President Commissioner for Standard Chartered Bank Indonesia, as well as a good friend of mine, Anindya Bakri, CEO of Bakri and Brothers. Really a great testament, an example of Indonesian business who are already pioneering in the EV and e-mobility space. And I'll also keen to invite you back, Amy, and Chief Scientific Advisor, Professor Paul Monks, to join, and later as well with Richard Graham, if you don't mind, joining the panel. After we, a few sort of preliminary questions from myself, then I think I'd encourage all of the audience to also kind of put your questions on the chat box. We're hoping to go through some of them. We're quite short on time, so why don't I kind of go straight to Donny from SCB. Hi, Donny, how are you? Keen to hear your thoughts around how can really a financial institution like Standard Chartered Bank play a role in supporting Indonesia's e-mobility ambition and the sector. Over to you, Donny.
Thank you, Stephen, and UKABC for inviting us to share our perspectives on this very important topic. So maybe actually just very quickly a context to set here. I mean, as we have been discussing, achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals are essentially our ultimate efforts to address the biggest global challenges faced by humanity. And the clock is essentially ticking on climate change, clean air, and green energy. Now, in a rapidly urbanizing world where every three people are forecast to live in cities by 2050, this is a formidable challenge. The real problem is at present, there is simply not enough capital flowing to the countries where investing to achieve the UN's SDGs matters the most. And the UN, just quoting UN, actually has calculated a financing gap of at least $2.5 trillion per year up till 2030 for emerging markets alone. Now, looking more closely at infrastructure-focused SDGs, we feel the scale of the problem and also the potential in this case. We issued a report called Opportunity 2030 that reveals a $10 trillion financing gap across 15 high-growth markets in Asia and Africa. This presents a clear business case and investment opportunity on the other side for the private sector to contribute. And a surge demand is coming from transport, housing, energy, digital connectivity, and water. The growth of e-mobility industry, as we have been discussing, will also be impacted by this investment. Many Asian countries, clean technology is beginning to transform land transportations. The question is, how can we connect this technology with investment needed to create solutions for clean land transportation? And financing, historically, financing for emerging markets has proven to be rather challenging. So truly transformative projects often cannot be funded by the government alone. or the public sector alone. Innovative forms of finance such as blended deals, one way to unlock progress with NGOs, governments, private sector, and insurers working together to help the world's poorest cities transition to low carbon economies. And this is where we, as the UK Global Bank, we have the vision to be the most sustainable and responsible bank. We have a unique footprint because essentially, actually, we have the global footprint across emerging markets, Asia, Africa, Middle East, the only bank in 10 ASEAN markets. We are primarily positioned to act as an intermediary or catalyst to make capital flows to countries where the impact is needed the most. Now, 2019 alone, we mobilized about $22 billion for infrastructure, 20 billion on clean tech projects, and also help clients issue 18.3 billion in green, blue, and other sustainable types of bonds in emerging markets. I think we know all these types of instruments actually are out there, but the key is actually innovation. Specifically on e-mobility, we've done a number of projects across the globe. We supported the 200 million euros financing for a project of a bus rapid transit scheme, providing hundreds of CNG-fueled Scania buses to the government of Ivory Coast in Africa. On the aviation sector, which is actually quite a pioneer, we partnered with Etihad to launch the world's first transition sukuk, $600 billion that will allow Etihad to align with the UN SDGs in its carbon reduction targets by investing in the next generation fuel-efficient aircraft. So there's quite a number of things actually that we can do. Now in Indonesia itself, obviously actually projects such as waste to energy, clean tech, hydro, as well as the wind and solar power plant generation, actually we have supported actually across a number of these districts in Indonesia. But the point is that I suppose we would really actually welcome a more sort of robust regulatory and policy framework to accelerate further the realization. I think actually the report that Amy has highlighted earlier, I mean, we see the potentials is very strong for e-mobility there. We welcome the presidential degree in 2019 that Professor Satrio actually had highlighted. But really actually the point is, how do we really accelerate this? Financing is there. And particularly actually post the pandemic, I mean, if you talk about any bankers in Indonesia, at the moment, what we see is excess liquidity. Now, sustainability is really an area where investment opportunities are abundant, if you will, particularly in Indonesia, to Professor Satrio's point, can really play a part actually in the global supply chain because of the natural resources potential that we have. Now, one thing actually I haven't heard is another mechanism which we are actually quite a big proponent on is actually the carbon credit. So obviously voluntary carbon markets is becoming actually the emerging sort of mega trend, if you will, now. Our group CEO, Bill Winters, is chairing this global private sector task force in upscaling the voluntary carbon markets. Now, EV, e-mobility actually has the potential to generate carbon credits. And that's another area where we can generate revenue stream in helping actually to support a viable financing. So I suppose actually happy to answer any of the questions there, but the key message is that Indonesia, significant potential. What we need to do is to accelerate through more robust policy and framework, regulatory framework there. And number three, the financing is there.
Sure. Thanks, Donny. I think it's great that you highlight the commitment from a UK headquartered bank. The amount of excess liquidity is there is really the key to accelerate. And talking about an accelerator and someone who's really quite close in the space, Anindya Bakri, the CEO of Bakri Brothers, Kim, if you are able to share with us why it's now the right time for Indonesian businesses to really focus in accelerating EV drives, and if you could share some success stories, that would be really good. And in your sort of perspectives, Anin, if you could share, what do you look for UK sort of partner, and how can UK businesses may potentially help you, because you're quite close in the EV space as well. Anin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very much, everybody. I like to say why now, because I think really all the stars are aligned. You have the right people in place. You have Ambassador Desra in the UK. You have Ambassador Owen over here. You have Baroness Neville, who I had the pleasure to meet, and certainly MP Richard Graham. and of course, all the new friends I'm making right now. I mean, if we cannot do anything right now, I don't know when we can do it, really. And the second thing, I think the blue sky effects in Indonesia post-COVID is really one of the political driver why this EV space can actually make a dent finally in Indonesia. Just to brief you, something that maybe you already know, Indonesia is the third largest democracy in the world, and 2/3 of the population, they are below 40 years old. So when they say they want to do things, they really do things, and the politicians listen. Just one anecdote, there is this young lady, 21-year-old, her name is Melati Whitson, single-handedly, for example, in Bali, campaigned for plastic and plastic bag and straw ban in Bali, and the policymakers listen and implement it. So that's just one anecdote saying that, hey, I think being the third largest democracy really helped. And as we have open media and we own ourselves a news station and we campaign for this, that helps. The second thing you heard already about the readiness to go to the market, from the technology availability, natural resources, the market, and then my friend here in Standard Chartered, Parino, mentioned about the capital market. So it's almost like, you have the demand from the people in Indonesia, and the policymakers actually listen. And then you have the supply side coming from, the readily available technology, the capital, and also the natural resources. So that's basically why I think the time is now. And the second thing, why are we doing this? We are a group that has been doing industrialization for 78 years, from steel business and also natural resources upscaling. Then we went to the industrialization for the TMT, telecom, media, and technology. And now I think the future, as everybody is saying the same thing, is electric vehicle and renewable energy. And we don't mind to become a pioneer in each one of this. We actually started this EV movement together with the government in 2018 with product launch of the heavy mobility or bus in the IMF World Bank conference in Bali. And in 2019, we worked together with Chambers of Commerce and Industry to push for the issuance of Presidential Decree number 55 on the EV, mobility. And we received, orders starting in 2019 for the e-formula that has been postponed because of the COVID. We went through the homologation process, and then we had this trial in Jakarta and Bali and so on. So now we are the one that is actually focusing on Transjakarta. Now, what's most important thing, I think, is to highlight why bus for us. Well, as we know, 25% of transportation contribute to the carbon emission, and public transportation is a big part of it when it comes in Indonesia. And buses is a big thing in Indonesia, about 400,000 buses to be converted by 2030, as Professor Bojonegoro already mentioned. And in Jakarta alone, 14,000 is planning to be converted starting this year. What's interesting is that this supply and demand that we spoke really is happening during the COVID time, when the budget of the national and regional government, especially regional government, is being cut by half because they have to reallocate it for the health crisis COVID purposes. Even that, they're still doing it. And the second thing also, the reason why we're doing it is that the going up the value chain possibilities is big. We spoke about the financial solution possibility, and I will speak about how UK can help us, the infrastructure provider, battery charger producer, chassis assembler, bodybuilder, and so on. But going forward, we can also become, smart operator, not only us, but many people, route owners, and who knows, now maybe I can go to the last question that you mentioned, what can we do together with UK? Well, UK is known for a lot of things. Industrialization is not, new for UK, right? And when we talk about this EV movement, I think we should also talk about, the extension of this I call heavy e-mobility movement. I think in a matter of 5 to 6 years, the autonomous heavy e-mobility technology provider like Lumina in the UK can become one of the partners over here. And new alternative energy technology like hydrogen fuel cell, it's just a matter of time. Just remember, we have one of the, if not the largest, coal supply in Indonesia, and UK. What I gather is that 59% of all public transportation is coming from buses. So that's why all the more, this makes so much sense. And lastly, what we can do together, rather than learning about how this industrialization could take place. And I heard a beautiful presentation from Dr. Emmy Hogadell. Also on the financing part, we launched just last year the first ever impact fund for Indonesia. But for the financing of this mobility for public transportation can also be a possibility for innovation. I mean, all these state-owned enterprises, or at least provincial enterprises operators, they can finance on their own. But how about the public operators? They actually need, I'm talking about the feeders of the buses. So they need certainly some creative financing. And UK, with the capital market being established, we also have, not big yet, but Komodo bonds, for example, being launched a couple of years ago. That's one of the things of exemplary what UK can offer. So a lot of things, Stephen, and I'm very excited. And this is one of the things that you can actually make a legacy, really, during COVID time. And I want to say that with the Omnibus Law, or the law of Job Creation Act, already passed, simplifying hundreds of laws into one to make sure that it's easier to invest in Indonesia during 2020. All the derivative decrees have been made and released. I think this is a prime, opportunity to come into the Indonesian market, and I certainly would like to hear a lot of inputs from all of your experience. Thank you, Stephen.
Sure, thanks, Chief Andin, and that's a really great sort of perspective around why now. A little bit on heavy e-mobility and what can we do together. And obviously, Chief Andin, you also represent as Vice Chairman of Kadin Indonesia, the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where it is a very powerful business group and association of all Indonesian businesses. Having someone like yourself championing further partnership in UK and Indonesia would be absolutely key to really unlock, as Dr. Amy and Professor Paul Monks mentioned at the beginning introducing the report. This is really an early chapter in the e-mobility space. How can these can be part of, to what Professor Satrio mentioned, a really integrated green energy ecosystem where e-mobility can be the low-hanging fruit, really. I would love to bring in a lot more of our panels, and we have a few lined up questions. However, I've been told we're at time. So I have to say very quickly, apology, we cannot go and address your questions one by one, but the Connected Catapult teams, CPC, as well as UK-ABC will get back to your questions one by one. At this juncture, I'll hand it over back to Lucy, Baroness Neville Rolfe, to close the Indonesia E-Mobility Future Forum. And I'm sure this is one of a very engaging conversation that we should do more. Lucy, over to you.
Steve, thank you so much. Thank you for getting people to time. And in the life of Zoom, everybody has other meetings to Zoom onto. And I think it's been an amazing event with so much sort of leads actually left unanswered, but huge amounts of opportunity. As I think we heard from Mr. Bakri, all stars are aligned. And he made that point, I think, both about the economy and about the sort of e-mobility sector, which we have had the pleasure of discussing. I think we come through, however, and if I may conclude, supporting the e-mobility plan for the future that was set out so clearly by Bapak Satrio at the beginning, this win-win of reducing pollution, reducing fossil fuel imports for Indonesia, so the balance of payments improve, and then industrial resilience and industrial growth in this amazing growth young economy. And I liked, you've got such a lot of investment opportunities here. And we've talked about the catapult, the particular catapult report suggestions, but actually investment opportunities go wider because they go, there are electric vehicles, there's batteries, there's apps, and the various things that can be done there. And actually, we were also told that Indonesia's resources for industrial production, leading in some of these areas of scarce resources were very important. So it seemed to me there was a lot of potential. And I like the way that Professor Monks put this in the context of the new government policy and the integrated review, with science and technology now at the heart of the UK-Indonesia relationship. And, that can bring together growth, environment. And as he said, the environment's not only about climate change and COP, which we're all very interested in, but also about health, because as you improve pollution, you improve health. And then the industrial impact is also positive. And I loved the practical presentation by the catapult and by Amy. For example, the two-wheelers are always with us, which ensures that there's a big polluter there that we need to do something about with these various new ideas that are coming through. There were many other great points made, and the questions that are outstanding, we'll try and come back. I know they cover lots of different things, from what you do post-coal to using waste to generate electricity. And of course, we'll need more electricity in the new world to replace fuel. So that itself is almost the subject of another seminar. But I think it remains for me only to thank everybody very much, to thank Richard Graham, our tireless Prime Minister's Trade Envoy, to thank Bapak Satrio and the Indonesian Academy of Science for their great work, to thank Professor Paul Monks, Chief Scientific Advisor at BAYS. It's a great honor to have you with us. To thank Dr. Amy Hockadell, who in a sense, if we hadn't had your presentation, Amy, the morning would have been a lot less productive. And I've sneakily taken a couple of copies of your slides, which you might want to circulate, because I think that they would be very useful as we move forward in the new world of UK-Indonesia trade. And then Donna Saputro of Standard Chartered, Mr. Bakri, my friend, I'm so glad to see you again. And I look forward to welcoming you back to London as soon as possible, and indeed to seeing you in Indonesia when we are allowed to come. And then finally, Steve Marcelino of Accenture for your superb questions on the panel. And then my own team, Ian Gibbons, Alan Lai, and everybody else who's helped to make this seminar a great success. And I think we have a good future in this area of e-mobility, and we can put the Indonesia-UK relationship on the map in a way at COP and elsewhere in a way that hasn't been happened before. So thank you very much indeed, and have a good evening in Southeast Asia and a good sunny day in Britain. Thank you. That ends the seminar.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you all. Terima kasih.
Thank you.